Happy day. Welcome to today's class of film studies. Ever since the early 19th century, when the beginning of the film industry, the origination of film industry, we have been and we are still wondering how this medium as films can create this engaging and absorbing experience to the viewer. How do filmmakers make use of this medium called film to provide that kind of an experience to the audience to enjoy as well as get entertained and informed at the same time. There are certain techniques which are visually visible or identifiable by the audience, such as the actors or the editing style or the audio, where people can make sure that these are the things that have created that experience to them. Filmmakers make use of these choices, the creative choices and the technical choices, to provide that engaging experience to the audience. This is what we call the style of the film. And to create that style, there are many ways in which filmmakers choose to do it. This style is what gives the look and feel of the film. In today's session, we will be seeing what creates this mise-en-scene or the style for the film. Okay. By the end of this session, we should be able to understand the concept of mise-en-scene as well as apply this concept and analyze any film extract that you choose to. Okay. Let's see what is the definition of mise-en-scene. Mise-en-scene as such is a French term, which means staging. Now this is from the theater, and when we adapt the same thing for films, it literally means everything that's there in front of the camera. All the information that the camera can record, that is in front of it, which will include, of course, the set design, the actors, the lighting, and many more. Now these information that gets covered should be giving the audience all the essential information that one needs to understand from the film's form, the narration, as well as what we're trying to say through the cinematography of the film. For example, if we take earlier films, this is an example from Fritz Lang's the German expressionist film Metropolis, or if you can take Indian examples also, I've given one from Lagan, Ashutosh Gowarikar's Lagan. If you see, it's quite evident that there has been a numerous number of people who have given all these effects to the film. They've put in a lot of effort to create that makeup or to create that setting, but there are other things, other realistic films where such effort goes unnoticed. It takes one to understand what goes into mise-en-scène. And as film studies or as a film student, it is important that we understand what are the elements that create such a good picture to engage and inform the audience as such. Just like how every single dialogue in a scene or a shot moves the story forward, moves the narration plot forward, it is very important that every element of mise-en-scene work together to convey that meaning to the audience. There are many elements. When put everything together, it will give the necessary effect that the audience would require from the filmmaker. This is what we called as the style, remember? All of these elements of mise-en-scene, namely sets and props, lighting and color, costumes, hairstyle and makeup, the actors blocking, which would give away the information about facial expression and the body language, shot composition, how we put people inside the frame. All of this is what is necessary to provide that style. Now, when we put all of these mise-en-scene elements in the right way and in the exact proportion that would explain the style of the filmmaker, it will provide a meaningful and a purposeful art form for the audience to watch. Let's get into each of these elements in detail now, the first starting with settings and props. The settings is the first element which provides information about where the story is happening. The moment you see an establishment shot beginning in a movie or any scene beginning with a new place, you get information as to where it is happening. Now this can happen or can be shot at either inside a studio or directly on a real location. When it is shot at a real location, it provides more authenticity because the elements will naturally blend with the surroundings. When it's shot inside a studio, it provides enough information and everything is in control in the filmmaker's hand. He'll be able to, the filmmaker definitely will be able to control everything that happens at the set, which will include the size of the rooms, the amount of light that flows in probably, the movement of the camera, and many more. So the condition that prevails inside the studio is more controlled, and the filmmaker is able to achieve what he wants at the right time, inside the right place. At a natural setting, it comes even more it comes with a lot of conditioning, which includes more number of people working to control the set as per the filmmaker's requirement. Yes, props again, these are things that are placed inside or at the set for shooting. Now there are two kinds of props, hand props and set props. Hand props are those that are used by the characters who play the role inside the frame, and set props are those that are arranged at the background or fill in inside the studio, inside the set. All of it which appears within the visual frame. Okay. Hand props, for example, are the ones that will be used, like maybe if you remember the flip book in Tare Zameen Par, or if you remember the bike in Sholay, all of these would be called as your hand props. Or if you remember this example in Titanic, the heart of the ocean, the diamond. All these are hand props which occupy a space in the narration or in the script. Set props are those that create the character for the set design, like whatever happens in the background to establish that a person is a studious one or a very organized one. You might have a well-arranged bookshelf at the back or a neatly arranged cupboard. Or if a person who is very good in culinary skills, probably you would see a well-arranged dining table or a crockery set. All of that would establish something about the nature of the person or the place that they live in. That's with the props. Okay, I have a few examples of certain sets, which this one is from Cleopatra, where it is one of those largest sets in history that was made. If you remember, another set which was the talk of the town of that time was the one that was in Ben-Hur, the chariot arena set. Okay. All of these established the importance of set, and it provided that grandeur which was in the filmmaker's mind to make them understand that this big an event can happen. Okay. You can take nice examples of the latest ones that you see in Sanjay Leela Bhansali's epic films, period films that he creates, where huge sets. These are certain things that the audience can only imagine, which they bring to life through sets designed and raised inside the studio. Okay. Many such examples. Apart from studio and real locations, sets can also be raised through CGI, computer generated imagery. Now these give the opportunity, or these give the freedom for a filmmaker to experiment on any and everything that can be imagined. They can bring in their creativity to life through different forms which they can create with the help of CGI. The next element of mise-en-scène that we would see would be costumes, hairstyle and makeup. Now costumes, every time we see a character in a nice costume, it automatically sets an identity for the person. It tells us who this person is, what is their status, or what is their economic condition, or their social status, what kind of nature would this person be in, or the temperament of the person based on the color of the costume that they are wearing. Similarly, hairstyle and makeup is also important in providing all of these details to the audience. If it's a period film, we can see the effort put in by certain craftsmen who create such costumes or hairstyle and makeup. If it's going to be a realistic film, the one that we see in the contemporary style, it might look like there's no special effort taken by the craftsmen, but even that includes a lot of effort to create that natural style of costume or that natural style of makeup and hairstyle. Yes. Giving a sense of time and period, by this we mean that it sets the person in a perfect time. It can tell you that this is a scene that, or this happening, or this event happened in the 1700s or 2020s, or even sometime in the future. This can dictate when actually the event has taken place. A small task for you, but just looking at the person, either the prop that is there, or the makeup style, or just the look of the person, are you able to identify the nature of this kind of a person, a character on screen? Yes, this is one suggestion. If you would have identified Johnny Depp's movies, the effort that he takes in creating interesting costumes or bringing out that character very interestingly, very strikingly, he takes in a lot of effort with his costumes, hairstyle and makeup to provide those varieties in the kind of characters that he plays. You can't forget Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, and of course Amitabh Bachchan. Many such examples like Pa, even Vikram's Eye, or Dashavataram, where Kamal has portrayed a lot of 10 different roles with different makeup and costumes. And of course Ben Kingsley portraying Gandhiji's role in a very convincing manner, the hairstyle and the makeup and the costume, everything that goes to say that he's played the role perfectly. All of this with the help of the mise-en-scene through costumes, hairstyle and makeup. And of course the curious case of Benjamin Button, where we can see a lot of changes, digital makeup done on this character to give it that kind of feel. The next element of mise-en-scene is, interestingly, the facial expression and body language of the character that's inside the frame. Yes, here, as soon as you see an expression, it might be the smallest of expression that the character makes inside the frame, it can send out a lot of different signals. It can establish the mood, the feel, and the emotions that the character is trying to portray in that frame. While watching a character appear, even before it starts talking a dialogue or saying or emoting something, just by the look of the person's face, of the character's face, the audience are able to guess what could be the feel of the entire shot or the scene. The next element, lighting and color. Lighting and color, which indicates how the scene or how the mood of that entire scene is going to be. There are two kinds of lighting which we can set, low-key lighting and high-key lighting. Low-key lighting creates sharp contrasts, like it says, it's low-key. There are three kinds of lights, key light, fill light and backlight. So the key light is going to be low, creating a sharp contrast of light and dark areas. In high key, the light is filtered. Filtered light is used and appears very normal and realistic. It maintains a very soft nature for the entire scene. Now this, when lighting is placed onto a set designed with the characters acting inside the frame, you can see how this entire mood and atmosphere is created as per the requirement of the feeling or the emotion that is required for that particular scene. So the filmmaker has to make sure that the right kind of lighting is given for the right kind of mood for every single scene that he creates. To highlight important characters or objects within the frame, when there needs to be certain importance given to a particular prop, an object, or a person or the movement of that person, it is necessary that the right amount of light, the adequate direction of light from where it flows has to be followed the way it is required. Yes, and to reflect the character's mental state, the emotions basically. The different kinds of lighting setup will say what kind of emotion that the character is going through. And of course, there can be color variations to discuss the same on those frame. It guides attention, audience's attention to key objects and gestures. Of course, it tells what to concentrate on. Naturally, in a well-lit scene, when one particular area is dark or when particular area is very lightly, it's lit brightly, your attention goes to that particular place to see what is the concentration of that particular character or that particular object. What meaning is it trying to give us? Why is it directing to notice that particular object? How does the director achieve some kind of meaning by just lighting a particular object or lighting a particular person in a different manner amidst the rest that are available on the set? Shadows also can build suspense. If you have noticed, in most of the horror films, you'd see the shadow appearing first or a larger, a magnanimous shadow that you see. It will create a kind of curiosity or it will mentally create a kind of, feel in the audience to ask for more, to watch for more. Okay. The differences in high key and low key lighting based on the requirement of that particular scene that we are creating. When you want to create, especially we see this difference in a normal film which can give away information in the way that the audience are already imagining, and in a film where the audience are expecting more to be shocked or surprised every time. We can clearly see the difference of lighting in these kind of scenes. Okay. These are certain classic examples where lighting portrays who's important or what is important or in which direction that we need to identify the character's movements or the character's importance in scenes. Okay. Now the differences between these high key and low key lighting, like you see, in high key it's brightly lit, whereas in low key lighting there's more of darker shades. Yes. The range of white and other light tones, it's more over here. Probably it's a scene which does not require much of concentration on all of the, or rather one particular element. It shows that everything happens in a way it should be. It is something that people expect to watch. Whereas here you use shadows to convey information, and mind, shadows also give away a lot of information about a particular scene. You need to emphasize, just like how you're emphasizing on light, shadows also can create meanings that is very necessary to carry your story forward. Okay, setting the mood is one more important thing when it comes to light. It's just not facial expressions. Lighting help carrying the story's emotions forward. Arrangements of elements inside the frame. Now this is defined by certain elements inside your frame while you're composing it. The space, depth, proximity, size and proportions of the places and objects in the film, of the characters, who's placed near, who's placed far, how close are things arranged inside the frame. All of this creates meaning to what we're watching in a particular shot. On-screen and off-screen space tells us about whatever that's there inside the screen and what can happen outside that screen. Your audience are mentally prepared to imagine what happens outside that screen. You do not have to show all the details. For example, if there is a telephone conversation where there are two people talking, if you show one person, automatically by the expression that this person gives and the answers that this person talks over the phone, your audience are able to grasp what could have happened or what could have been said outside that frame from the other person on the other side of the telephone. All of this is created by the way we place this person inside this frame, our character who's on screen, and how we get the scene forward in all these forms of elements of mise-en-scene. Okay. Proximity, the foreground denotes importance, the placement of the character right in front could say that this is the person who's going to be talking something or carrying that particular shot forward. Indicates the relationship between people. When you're placing 2 or 3 people in a frame, you could say who's important and who's not, or who is looking, what is the relationship that they share between each other. This is an example of the relationship that's shown, and also notice the colors, how the colors can say that this is a happy mood, or it can establish that it's a light rom-com that you're watching. Whereas again, these kind of colors indicate that these rusty or orangish or brown colors tell us that this is something of importance. This is a story that's going to be giving away certain feelings that has not unlike the rom-com, it is substance that is going to have an idea in your mind, create some kind of idea in your mind where you have to understand what the character is going through. It is meeting a conflict, or it's a hurdle for him to cross, and that is why these kind of colors. There are many different colors used to establish different moods. Like you see a lot of bluish and green tones in films like Matrix, where you know it's a science or a techno kind of a movie. There are other shades. For horror especially, we know that the bluish or the dark black tones are used. Placement, like we explained, proximity. It tells us the mood of the characters. In any particular frame, when you see people placed close to each other and replicating each other's action, it says they have a vibe, they work well. Now here in this shot, you can see Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, where they know they're in a mission and they have the same kind of look, or they have the same kind of idea towards what they're trying to deal. That would be very well established in their facial reaction as well as their body language. Shot composition is the final element of mise-en-scène. In this frame, if you see, we're talking about composition. How do we arrange? How does composition establish the importance? Where does it lead the audience's eye to watch? When we look at a frame, the rule of thirds says there are 4 intersecting points where our eye naturally looks at those points, and those are the places where the filmmaker needs to put the important characters or objects to gather or to hold the audience's attention. Okay. The angles in composition is very important. This is what will also indicate how important the character is or what the character is going through in the film's arc. Okay, we have different angles, the high, low, flat, and the tilt, which generally any audience would be able to guess. But there are so many connotations to these kind of angles where one has to understand that it is placed or it is shot at that angle for a particular reason. Okay, now framing the shot's distance, how a character is placed in the shot. Is it a close-up? Is it a long shot? Are we going to be showing this character amidst a larger crowd? Are we going for an extreme close-up to establish the emotion of or more into detailing of a particular object or a person? Or are we cutting at knee length? There are different kinds of shots which have reasons to be placed or to be shot in that way to give away certain information. Okay, let's see these angles first. Now, when you're trying to show a high angle or a low angle, we're either suggesting our audience to understand what the character is going through. When you give a tilted angle, we inform the audience that it is kind of a confused situation or a conflict that is happening. Or if you're going to placing the camera at a high angle and tilting it low to look at the character, we are trying to minimize the domination that particular character is having. It is being looked down upon. The same, reverse. The camera is placed down and it's tilted up to see where you show the character larger. It is having a dominance over the other character or the situation as such. Now, these are understood, or these are the meanings that the shots can convey through the help of mise-en-scène, especially in the angles that we create. Now, look at this particular shot. According to the composition, at the right intersecting places, we do know that your eyes have to be concentrating on the important characters that are in the foreground. They are placed in proximity, in front, so you know the character is discussing something that is going to take the shot forward, the scene forward thereby. Or you can say the plot is dependent upon what is happening between these characters. And of course, we see some kind of action happening at the background too, which is also part of the story, but is of minimal importance. Now, we've discussed the 5 elements of mise-en-scène. Just a reminder for you, the sets and props, where the story is happening, whether it's inside the studio or outside, what are the different kinds of properties that are used in, which is forming an important part of the narration, the lighting and the color, which talks about how the mood or the scene is set for the audience to understand or carry that emotion, costumes, hair and makeup, which create a presence or which creates an identity for the particular character in the minds of the audience. And then we have the actors blocking, the facial reactions, how they carry the story through their reactions or through their body language. That gives enough space for them to move around inside the frame. Yeah, while talking about actors blocking, it's important to remember blocking and staging as well, where inside the frame, your actor is able to communicate with the other characters inside the frame through their expressions in body language and through their movement. So the way they are placed, this is what we discussed in framing and composition. And in staging, it's the place in which they can move. So there needs to be enough space for the actor to, or the character to move around, as well as keeping in mind the cinematographer's job, where the camera also will be taken in and out of that staged place, where it is important to show different angles of that same scene. So having this in mind, the actor's blocking is kept, and through that the mise-en-scene is established. The last one, the short composition, we saw the positioning of the character and how the objects are placed inside the frame to create that kind of an effect. Now all of these elements put together is what will create a good style for the entire film. It's important that each of these elements are kept in mind so that all of these small bits of information that we provide through different kinds of elements come together to give that meaningful form. It might look like simple things while we try to understand each one concept, but if you identify a film of your choice and if you're going to analyze each of these elements one by one, you'll find a lot of hidden meanings throughout the film. In smaller ways, how the director has moved the story forward, and also the different kinds of meanings layer by layer that's been provided to you to understand what the filmmaker has initially intended. Take any movie of your choice and try analyzing all of these elements and see how they have worked wonders by spinning these elements to give you that engaging and absorbing experience in that particular scene or in the entire film. Okay, now you could do this simple exercise of writing down the different kinds of elements and finding out how these elements, each of them has established, and in what way have they established in conveying that meaning, just like the way the filmmaker wanted it to be. Okay, if you're done with that, probably you should be taking up this to check your knowledge of mise-en-scene. Take up this quiz in this link that's given over here. For further understanding and knowledge of mise-en-scene, I would urge you to follow these books and the website for a clear understanding of how mise-en-scene works in films. Thank you.